Okay. I'm gonna go in when I'm starting off with my coffee. I got my coffee for today. First and foremost, Spirit literally woke me up this morning at 6 o'clock a.m., telling me to get my ass up, get to my altar to meditate and pray, and then get to recording this video. So it's a little funny, but it is the push that I needed, because even though what I'm going to talk about today is something that I've been wanting to talk about for quite some time, um, the topic is like a smaller discussion that's being had in the context of a bigger discussion that needs to be had, right? So, what am I talking about today? What's the topic? The topic of the day is the glamour is fading. And um and when I talk about glamour, I'm talking about illusions. I'm talking about literally glamour, magic, and whatnot. And the reason why I want to speak on this is because clearly this is something that we're seeing on all levels. We're seeing it in the physical realm, as far as our government, our countries, our social dynamics, our personal individual dynamics, and our dynamics within community. And we're also seeing it clearly in entertainment industry, et cetera, right? And so I wanted to come and bring a deeper perspective as a spiritualist, what I see going on and what I've been seeing going on for quite some time, right? um so yes, the glamour is fading, people are waking up, the illusions are being shook up. And this is something that's been happening for a while. This is something I've noticed that has been happening at least since about maybe 2013, 2014, at least within the last decade or so. The reason why it's so jarring now is because it's happening on a faster rate. There's a lot of things that I'm seeing, a lot of downfalls, a lot of things coming to light, a lot of revelations that honestly I never thought that I would actually witness in my lifetime, right? So yes, this is not new. Some of us have been seeing it, and for those who are seers and spiritualists that are watching this video, you know what I'm talking about. And those of you who are not spiritually inclined, have been feeling it. You've been coming into awakenings. There's a lot of disillusionment that comes along with it. So regardless of where you are in the spiritual spectrum, it you could see it. It's been, you can feel and see that this has been happening. This is not new. um the reason why this is happening is because spirit is trying to bring balance. There's a lot of imbalance going on, a lot of things that have been going, a lot of actions that have been taking place, a lot of behaviors and ways of being that have been happening globally for centuries that are out of alignment with the natural order of things, on a level of nature and on a level of spirituality, right? And because of that, there's a reckoning happening. We are witnessing a reckoning. And I am not speaking from the Christian book of Revelations, the world's coming to an end, the rapture is happening. No, I'm not speaking from that perspective. I'm speaking just from a person who is a spiritualist that understands that everything takes balance. There's light and dark, everything has an opposite, everything is polarized. And whenever things lean too much in one direction, nature, and spirit grabs it to bring it into the other direction, to bring it more into a middle path, right? And that's what's going on. Things have been polarized for so long, and in such an extreme and harmful way, that now spirit and nature is like, hold up, we gotta switch this up. We gotta change what's happening, because it is really destroying a lot of things on a catastrophic level, both on earth with nature and spiritually within society, within communities, and within our spirituality, right? So that is the reckoning that I'm speaking of. It's just this, for those who do tarot, this what's happening right now is the towers. This is the towers, right? And the symbolism of the tower is, this is the lightning bolt that is striking things down in order to clear out stuff so we can rebuild, right? And I want to reference something like when with what I saw going on within the last 2 years, as far as things coming to light and things like that. I spoke to I made a TikTok video where I towards the end of last year where I specifically said that and this was addressing my fellow spiritualists. I specifically said that going into next year, before you offer that service, that product, that group service, that retreat, um make sure that what you are trying to offer is what the community actually needs, or what's in alignment with what the community needs. Otherwise, you're not going to last the year. You're not going to make it through 2025. And I'm already seeing that, right? Um and I'm actually going to get into detail about that. Because I'm going to use somebody as an example of what's going on, right, with this glamour that is fading. And the reason why I say that is because I'm seeing these illusions being shattered within Hollywood and within the entertainment industry and within our politics, right? Specifically in the United States. I know I do have some people who watch that are in other countries, but a lot of people out of the country pay attention to what's going on in the United States. And so from what I was seeing, this domino effect trickling, down, I was very much aware that no industry, no field is immune to what's happening, and that includes the spiritual community. So, the same way that all these entertainers are being exposed for the things that they're doing behind the scenes, the same way these politicians, these institutions are being exposed for the things that they're doing behind the scenes. This is also happening within our spiritual community as well. So yes, the glamour is fading. Like shit's hitting the fan. It's been hitting the fan. Um, and the telltale signs of this is the fact that, one, people are waking up. This awakening has literally been happening really since about maybe the last 15, 20 years, but it really accelerated during the pandemic, right? So people are waking up on a mass level, and that's the thing. Once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. And if you do go back to sleep, you can't stay asleep for very long, right? Like once you see the reality of something, there's no unseeing it. In addition to that, spirit is holding people accountable, right? Spirit wants its just due. So spirit is stepping in and saying, look, like there's some things that need to be brought into balance, there's some things that need to be made right, and they're making sure. And when I say spirit, I'm talking about spirit guides, ancestors. I'm speaking to the spirits of the land that we reside on. I'm speaking to spirits within our own personal spiritual courts. Like I'm speaking to just spirit, right? The energies that have a direct interest in what is happening with us, and who are charged with our evolution, right? Because the reality is that even though a lot of this stuff that's going on is very kind of jarring, and it's a lot of people are like shook and shaken, it's necessary in order for us to evolve, because it's clear that we can't continue to do things the way we've been doing them, right? So spirit is holding people accountable, and we can know, and what that means is that we can no longer lie, steal, and exploit in the name of spirituality, in the name of religion, without spirit immediately stepping in and saying, this is, we already done fucked around, and now we're in the find out stage, right? So this brings me to the smaller conversation that I want to have in light of the bigger conversation, which is I want to talk about Jessyka Winston, who is the owner of Haus Of Hoodoo. And I want to bring her up because she is a prime example of how these illusions are fading, how the glamour is being shattered. And the reason why I'm using her as an example is because, one, she's a hot topic right now. Anybody who is connected to the spiritual community, most of you who are on my platform, you are aware of her and her company. But also too, Jessyka is a conversation that has needed to be had for a very long time, right? And for those of you who are not aware of what's going on with Jessyka, she has a store that is in New Orleans. And even before then, she was online for a very long time, with her brand, before she opened up a physical location down in New Orleans. And she recently announced that her store was closing, and the store closing is in the midst of a lot of personal and legal disputes that are going on with her, right? And so a lot of people are shocked, a lot of people are surprised, and a lot of people are like, what's going on? Like, why? And then when you go into her stories, and go into her social media, and she's kind of sharing what's been going on with her, a lot of people are surprised, right? Which, for those of us who are practitioners and who have been in this community for a while, we're not surprised, right? But for those of the general public, a lot of people are surprised. And so, first of all, I want to be careful about what I say, because the intention for this video is not to be caught up in the drama of the things, right? Like, I don't want to make this commentary about the drama. I want to make this commentary about, one, a cautionary tale, but two, about facts, because y'all know I'm a receipts type of bitch. Like, I don't I don't speak on anything that I can't say to the person's face, and that I can't back up, or that I don't know, that I don't have receipts for, or that I can't vouch for. You know what I'm saying? That I can't support with evidence. So I want to preface this whole video with that fact, right? And so I don't want to make it about the drama. I want to make it about the facts. I want to use it as a cautionary tale. And also to bring light to some things that I've been withholding in regards to her and that company for a very long time, right? So I also want to preface this video by saying that I rarely speak publicly about other practitioners, right? Other spiritualists, regardless of how I feel about them, regardless of what I know about them. And I'm gonna be real with y'all, I know a lot of shit about y'all's favorites, and a lot of y'all's favorites are extremely problematic. And Jessyka has been problematic since the inception of Haus of Hoodoo, and I'm gonna get into why. Okay. So I rarely speak because a lot of practitioners, we kind of have a unspoken code of ethic, right? A lot of us don't speak on what we know about other practitioners publicly. We tend to, our rule of thumb tends to be, we mind the business that pays us, right? And for me, if it doesn't affect me and my coins or my what I got going on, I don't insert myself in other spiritualist business. Usually the only time we speak publicly about anything is when we're trying to mitigate any potential harm to the community, right? And so I want to say that, first of all. Another reason why I rarely speak on other spiritualists is because a lot of y'all's favorite spiritualists utilize glamour magic. And I've learned that you really can't appeal to people. You can't really appeal to people who've been glamored. You can't. They don't listen, they don't believe you, and there's just this culture that we have for some reason, that anytime somebody criticizes critique is a better word. Anytime someone critiques someone or brings up something that's not flattering to another person, everybody jumps on the person speaking out, claiming that they're haters or they're jealous, or and it's like, regardless of that person and the fact that they may have some legitimate critiques, right? So I've learned not to speak out about people who use glamour magic because a lot of reasons. One, glamour is a domination magic. At the very core of it, it is domination work. And so a lot of people who are glamored by someone, they're dominated by that person. It makes them dangerously loyal to that person, at the expense of themselves and the community, right? um it creates a cult like following. I've noticed that every practitioner that builds their platform off of glamour magic, they garner a lot of followers that are almost on a cult like status, right? um and it creates this mask that then the practitioner that's using the glamour magic has to hide behind. So it's like a lot of people end up riding for and defending a person that they don't even really know who that person really is, because that's really what it boils down to. A lot of folks on social media, you don't really know who these people are, right? You really don't know who these people are, not for real, for real. But then you interact with them. There's these parasocial relationships that are very unhealthy and toxic, and then you end up writing for these people like you know them personally. Even if you've met the person, a lot of these spiritualists have stores, or they do things where you get to meet them in person, interact with them. That's just one interaction that, again, when you're preparing to go out into a public as a spiritualist that does glamour magic, you can put that facade on, and you can prepare for that, and then you can allow people to see whatever you want them to see, right? So you never really see the real person when you're dealing with the spiritualist that is using glamour magic, and another reason too is that glamour magic is also dangerous for the practitioner, because for one, it's not a one and done type of thing. You have to keep up, you have to feed the glamour magic, right? It's similar to like a mojo bag or like jar work, where you have to constantly feed it in order to keep it going. Glamour magic works the same way. A lot of times, because of that, a lot of these big name spiritualists will you siphon your energy to feed their glamour magic. That's essentially how it works. Entertainers do the same thing. People in Hollywood do the same thing. So spiritualists are doing similar magic, So it is parasitic in nature. It is vampiric in nature. And then what ends up happening is that at some point, because this practitioner has to keep up this glamour magic, they over time start to believe their own glamour. you know, um, and that is where it becomes very dangerous for the practitioner. That's when you start to see practitioners becoming narcissistic, becoming cult leader like. They become a lot of them have psychotic breaks. I can't tell you how many psychotic breaks I've seen within spiritualists over these last 5-6 years because of that, right? um Even people, and again, as a practitioner, I actually don't have an issue with glamour magic. Everything has its place, right? But like everything you do with spell work and magic, you have it the result depends on the person and their intention, and it's something that you have to be responsible with, right? So, you know, what I also find is that for those that rely on glamour magic to build their brand, build their platform, um, their platform, their brand, their products, their services, whatever they're selling, whatever they're presenting, tends to be, it's void of substance. There's nothing behind it other than glamour. There's nothing behind it other than your belief in the concept of this thing, the theory of this thing, right? That's the reason why you go to these people, you spend $50-$60 on a candle, you get it, and then you're like, my candle didn't work. Or you go and you pay thousands of dollars for a service from this person, and then it didn't work because there was nothing up behind it other than them presenting the idea of this thing. They're not real practitioners really behind it. So that is the reason why I don't really I don't really speak out on what I know about a lot of practitioners, and particularly those that use glamour magic, because y'all don't believe shit. People be throwing out red flags. People, this is not the first time someone has spoken about Jessyka. Like, and I'm gonna go through the history. I'm gonna come with what I know. I got a whole y'all know me. Whenever I do any videos, any podcast, I have a lot of Virgo in my chart. I come with notes, checklists, receipts, all of that, right? And everything that I say, you can go through the history and you can fact check, right? So this is not allegedly, this is what I know for sure, and I'm only speaking on what I know. So, yeah, y'all don't believe when people blow the whistle, or you don't want to believe because a lot of times you've invested time, you've invested a lot of money in these people, and a lot of people don't want to admit that they've been scammed on some level, right? So, most practitioners that know what's really going on, we just kind of let y'all kind of figure it out on your own or come to grips with what's going on in reality on your own. So I first started following Jessyka back in 2016, 2017. And at the time, she had just started Haus Of Hoodoo. I think she was only a couple years into her brand. This was before she moved to New Orleans. She was still in Los Angeles. And I was put onto her by a client of mine. They recommended her Instagram. That's what she mainly was on. And so I followed her, and immediately I dug her aesthetic. Like, I will say this: Jessyka is really great at creating content. She makes these really beautiful pictures. She's a really good storyteller. She is a beautiful writer, and so she combines those two aspects in order to create like amazing content. So the other thing that I noticed is that she is a great businesswoman, and as someone who is a businesswoman, I always respect and give props to the business acumen of other entrepreneurs, right? So I could tell that she had some background in branding and marketing, and that you could see it in her content. Now, I did notice immediately that her posts, her content was not hoodoo. As a practitioner of hoodoo, I noticed that the things that she was like, her spells, the types of spells she was doing, the herbs that she was highlighting, different things like that. I could tell that they were more Wiccan and not hoodoo. Okay, but it was no big deal. It was like, no harm, no foul. She's just posting. Also, at the time, she was mainly sharing her journey as a Mami Wata priestess. She had gone to Ghana, I believe it was Ghana, to go get initiated in the Mami Wata um, cult or lineage. And that was all she was doing. Even though her brand was Haus Of Hoodoo, her content specifically wasn't, and then she didn't have any other initiations besides the Mami Wata one. So I enjoyed her content for maybe about a year or so, but then I was noticing red flags, right? First of all, remember how I said that she is great at telling stories? Her stories can be exaggerated. I noticed that immediately. Well, not immediately. I noticed that over time, because at first, when I first started following her, she was speaking to having like Cuban ancestry and growing up, spending time with her family in Cuba. And for those who spiritualists or even others who've been following Jessyka for a while, you probably remember this, where she was talking a lot about being her Cuban grandma and spending time with her grandma in Cuba. And then all of a sudden, she was speaking to being Dominican, which I think she actually is Dominican. And then all of a sudden, when she later married her Haitian, who's now her ex-husband, then all of a sudden it was like she's got roots in Haiti and whatever. So we was noticing like these different stories about her background. That was a red flag. The other red flag that I noticed was how she interacted with her following. Jessyka is mean. She's mean. She's nasty. Particularly with Black women, and I'm gonna get in more into that. But anybody who didn't agree with her, now mind you, there would be people who would be disrespectful, and it was completely her right to clap back. But there would be people who would just be innocently questioning or have questions about things, and she would immediately bully them, be nasty, condescending, and it was mostly always towards Black women. So those were red flags for me. So those were my initial observations of Jessyka. I just noticed certain behaviors that had me questioning her character. Um, and then she moved to New Orleans. She left LA, went to New Orleans, and that's when things really got weird. That's when I started noticing like a very down. That's the start of the downward spiral with her. I already think that Jessyka was not mentally equipped. She didn't have the mental foundation in order to embark in all these spiritual practices that she was essentially chasing. Um, and again, I'm being careful with my words, right? Because, as a spiritualist that is seeking initiation and getting into all these different things, you have to have a certain mental fortitude in order to be able to handle it in a responsible way and in a way where it doesn't destroy you mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, right? So I don't really think that Jessyka had that before she started embarking on these things, right? So she go, and then New Orleans is not the place to go to if you don't have it together, And so when she moved there, that's when things started to become very evident. She linked up with Sally Ann Glassman, which if you guys don't know who that is, Google her, and then you'll see why that's problematic. When she first got to New Orleans, she was attending events briefly at Sally Ann's temple. Even had shared some stories about getting mounted at a fete, et cetera, et cetera. And she was riding with Sally Ann for a quick minute. And then she linked up with Mambo Carmel, who is known in the spiritual community, in the voodoo community, and is a Mambo, legitimate from my understanding. And then when she linked up with Carmel, Carmel took her to Haiti and initiated her into Haitian voodoo. And when Jessyka came back from Haiti after being brought into Carmel's Societe, that's when she started backtracking on Sally Ann, and speaking out a little bit against Sally Ann. So, and again, I don't know if Jessyka got initiated into voodoo and as Sepuen or Asogwe. But all I know is she came back claiming to have a son, and then claiming to be a mambo, and then claiming all these things with her title, which was problematic because she had no training. Immediately after she got back from Haiti, her and her initiatory mother, her godmother, started having issues. They started they basically declared war on each other, and I'm actually going to go into that a little bit in a minute, right? So there were conflicting stories about her title. She started making outlandish statements about Haitian voodoo, like coming in like she was trained and she knew everything, and she was claiming to be able to do all these things when she wasn't trained and she was newly initiated. All right. And then I noticed, she was paranoid a lot, claiming to be spiritually attacked and all these things, which I'm pretty sure she was, because there was a conflict between her and her spiritual mother, between Mambo Carmel. And what I understand, what happened coming from people who were witnessed to that, is that she basically left Carmel's house, stole some things from that house, and then directly from the temple, and then started throwing witchcraft at her godmother. And so, of course, Carmel retaliated and it became this thing. However, what I also know was that for a while before that happened, Jessyka was going with Carmel to Haiti to go and hex their competitors, right? And there is a pattern of that with Jessyka. So a lot of what she's going through now is a direct result of a lot of things that she's done. A lot of things that she's done behind the scenes, and not so behind the scenes, because I'm other practitioners have spoken out about this and have provided receipts, right? So in addition to what I witnessed going on, and what I was told by witnesses and firsthand accounts, that's kind of what started Jessica's, downward spiral, and her kind of getting again, I don't want to, I want to be very careful about what I say. um that is kind of more of where we started to see her negative character traits being more prominent, right? And then I think what really kind of got to me was, and for the time I was just witnessing it on from the outside looking in, right? Like, I still had no vested interest in what was going on over there. Again, it was not the business that pays me. That was her over there in New Orleans or whatever she had going on. But then what really kind of shifted for me was when I had colleagues and practitioners coming to me telling me what she was doing to them, right? For example, I remember Bossy Bruja, Io, telling me how Jessica Winston had stolen or tried to copy the concept of magnetism. For those of you, again, who are in the spiritual community that buys products from these other spiritualists, you very well know Bossy Bruja is very well known for her conjure oil called magnetism. Like, it's her staple oil. All of a sudden she gets big with it. She's making a lot of money selling this oil, and then all of a sudden you see Haus of Hoodoo selling an oil called magnetism. Bossy Bruja reached out to Jessyka, basically asking her, like, hey, what's up with this? Like, and like, this is an oil that I've coined, like, why are you selling a similar oil? And Bossy Bruja wasn't even disrespectful about it. It was just like a, from one peer to another, why are you selling an oil that has the same exact description and use as my signature oil? And Jessyka immediately was dismissive. She was rude, and she told Bossy Bruja, well, you need to trademark it and get with the lawyer. Basically, if you don't have anything, any copyright or anything, there's nothing you can do about it. Very dismissive. I don't know if Jessyka was still ended up continuing to sell magnetism, but that happened. I learned that a lot of the candles that Jessyka was selling, the dressed candles, she was going to another Botanica down in New Orleans, buying the candles bulk, having those practitioners dress them for her, and then she was taking them into, her establishment, slapping her label on them and selling them as her own. So there is no real confirmation that Jessyka was ever really dressing her own candles, and as a person who owns a store and owns a business, those kind of conversations are had behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of us get our materials from the same warehouses, like our basic candles and, incense and things like that. And so, because we're all in the same network, we all talk. That's the reason why I know when my competitors are overcharging for their products in their store, because we all get our shit from the same distributor. And those, once we bring them into our stores, then we do whatever we do with them. But yeah, so the owner of that Botanica down in New Orleans spoke to another business, and it was relayed, and then that's that. So no, she wasn't making her own. She wasn't making her own candles, and when that Botanica closed down, a lot of people noticed that when they were buying her candles after that Botanica closed down, that the candles weren't working the same, right? That the quality and the effectiveness of her dress candles were hit and miss, right? So there was that. I do remember when her and Conjure Goddess got into it, because when Jessyka first started putting her labels on her products, they were very, very, very similar to Conjure Goddess's labels on in her branding, right? So Conjure Goddess had accused Jessyka of copying her branding. And if you go to Conjure Goddess's stuff, her page, you will notice a lot of similarities with Jessyka. And the reason why that's so significant is because Conjure Goddess, she created the 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 branding for all of her candles. So all of her candles with all the labels, she's a graphic designer. She designed that herself, right? So those were her original concepts. All of a sudden, Jessyka's having candles that have the same type of branding, and then there was a dispute. There was a back and forth behind that. So those were all the things that I saw firsthand on the spiritual side. I mean, on the business side, but then there was other things going on the spiritual side. Jessyka is very known for throwing witchcraft at her competitors, or against spiritualists that, call her out or critique her, or that she just doesn't like. So, for me, that was the biggest problem. This the intentional attack and harming of other practitioners for no reason, for no real reason, other than narcissistic paranoia and an ego. You know what I'm saying? And for me, it's just like, it's one thing to do whatever you do to further your business, because we live in a capitalistic society that promotes using unethical means in order for gain. So it's expected to have other businesses copy what you do, or try to take your business, or take your clients, or whatnot like that. I don't agree with it, but it's to be expected. I experienced it myself. Businesses that, other spiritual botanicas that weren't selling certain things until they saw me selling them. That comes with the territory. The issue is when you start attacking people spiritually, and Jessyka became known for that. She first and foremost, when people started really calling her out, particularly the Haitian voodoo community, I remember my good friend James Stewart, known as the Conjure Cleaner, coming out and speaking about his experience with her. And I kind of wish that more people paid attention to him. I really wish more people paid attention to that, because, mind you, when this all started going on, we're talking about 2018, right? Like when she started really being called to the carpet. So maybe a year or two after I started following her, and maybe about 4 years after she started her Haus Of Hoodoo brand, people started calling her to the carpet. And I remember the first person that did that was James. And James talked about how and mind you, I've sat down and spoken with James. You know what I'm saying? So again, this is a firsthand account that was relayed to me, of her firsthand experience that was relayed to me. James talked about how he worked with Jessyka when she was still in LA, how he helped her with her brand, helped her with her business. She did not pay him, allowed him to struggle. And they were because they were friends. He was friends with Jessyka long before she launched Haus Of Hoodoo. And they worked together. She made money off of his labor, didn't pay him. When they were doing certain things in Haitian voodoo together, when she left Madame Carmel's temple and stole certain things from the Jevo, she stole something that belonged to James, that he had received as a part of an initiation and things that he had done. And she used that to work him and throw witchcraft at him. Right. And James, I'm only sharing what he has shared publicly, right? He's already talked about this. He talked about this 4 years. No, this was 2018. We're talking about what, 8 years ago? No, 6 years ago, right? 7 years ago. So so there's that. she threw witchcraft at Tatiana Tarot, um, because Tatiana was a competitor on, Tatiana has, and it's been a while since I've tapped into her, but when I remember, following her, Tatiana, she has a large following, very large following. So she, as in Jessyka, started throwing witchcraft at other people on social media that had a following that was equal to greater than hers, right? Because no real reason. I don't even know of any conflict that Tatiana even brought to Jessyka for Jessyka to even justify throwing witchcraft at her. um when Jessyka was saying a lot of things that were anti-black, which I'm going to talk about that too. Daisy, the Afro mystic, called her out, and Jessyka responded by trying to find intel and information on Daisy so she can take in and throw witchcraft. And Daisy has also spoken about that publicly. She came with receipts of screenshots of private messages where Jessyka actively, did that. And again, this was still back in what, 2020, 2019. So my point is that Jessyka has been problematic for a very, very long time, but not enough for people to really wake up to the fact, because a lot of people were caught up in that glamour, her aesthetic, what she was presenting, the stories that she was telling, right? So, and those are the people that I know about that she threw witchcraft at. I don't know how many countless others that she did. And so when we talk about what's going on with her now, this is just a result and a consequence of these actions, this lying, this stealing, this exploiting, this throwing witchcraft at other practitioners without a justified reason other than spite and paranoia and an ego, right? So all this was going on, and this happened before she met her, who's now her ex-husband. But when she linked up with him, that's when she became very problematic. She met this man, this Haitian man, who was clearly questionable. Anybody kind of looking on the outside looking in could tell that this wasn't a good idea. But again, her business, her circus, her monkey. And so she, met up with this Haitian man, created this really interesting story about him, which makes me believe that she was worked, that he worked her, his fan, whatever spiritual background he has allowed him to work her. And met him, brought him home, and ended her long-term relationship that she had. Immediately married this Haitian man, brought him into, because then at that point she was opening Haus of Hoodoo, and the actual physical location down in New Orleans, and immediately created this concept of this power couple with this man that she honestly barely knew. Created this whole story around it, how it was she had a dream about marrying this man, and then she met him and he was the one, and it was really kind of interesting to watch. But then at that point, that's when because she claimed to be a mambo and married this Haitian man, then she really started making these crazy statements about I'm laughing because it's like I can't even, like, it was so much stuff that she was saying that just was red flags, and it had everybody like, wait, what? But then again, nobody was willing to cancel her, and she should have been canceled. You know what I'm saying? I need to drink some coffee and gather myself for this one. Hold on. Because it was at this point that Jessyka really lost her goddamn mind. She married this Haitian man, and then who she claimed to be a hungan, or whatever. And so then all of a sudden she was talking about how you know they were starting to do these ceremonies and these services, in the name of Luau, in the name of Haitian voodoo, that I can't speak for him because I don't know the full extent of his background, but that she had no license doing, right? So she was facilitating these ceremonies, these fetes, these things. She would say things like, you know, this is she was. I remember her posting a post was showing this land that her husband has in Haiti, claiming that this is their land and that, you know, she was gonna that they weren't allowing anybody on it, that it was their private land, which anybody who understands the history of Haiti, and what Haiti is was and continues to go through, why that's completely a fucking colonistic and problematic post to even make. So there was that. But then she was claiming that, you know, that her and her husband have ties. No, she has ties to the spirits of Haiti and the ancestors of Haiti through this land that she's got with her husband, which is again odd because she's Dominican and not Haitian, and I don't understand how all of a sudden, you know, this land gives her access to these spirits by proxy through her husband. So there was that she immediately started getting called out about when people started speaking, when people noticed that post. So there was that. Then she was saying that if you don't have land in Haiti, then you can't access Haitian voodoo, and that you can't be initiated into Haitian voodoo and you don't have Loa. And there was a lot of Haitian voodoo practitioners and actual Haitians that were speaking up against that. She started talking about how her voodoo and her asan wasn't for sale, and how she had no problem selling hoodoo, but that her Haitian voodoo practice wasn't for hire. That's initially what she was saying, right? Which also was problematic because basically you're saying that, you know, that you don't respect hoodoo and that you are willing to exploit and sell hoodoo. That basically what I took that to mean was that she didn't have respect for hoodoo as a practice, the practice that she built her brand on, and that she was willing to sell it and exploit it, but that it wasn't as sacred to her as some of these other practices. You know, she would make these statements about her title, and how when her and her husband started hosting fetes and building a spiritual house, she would say things like, you know, she started making these claims about how all these other mambos and hungans and these societtes weren't real, and that hers was the only real, true, traditional voodoo. And a lot of people who've been following Jessyka remember that. So she was laying claim to saying how her voodoo was the only true voodoo, and everybody else's was a fake and a fraud. And if you see houses, every house, true voodoo house, only has one mambo and one hungan, and that if she were to initiate anybody into her associate, that she couldn't initiate them as mambos or hungans, that she can initiate them to their ancestors. And that's actually at the point, well, I had unfollowed her for a while, but at that point, because people would send me these screenshots and send me these things of her kind of spiraling with these outlandish statements, and I had kind of blocked her content. But when she started saying things like that, that's when people really started speaking out, right? Because first of all, how do you initiate someone to their ancestors? What does that even mean? What does that even mean? And how are you making these statements as a guest? Like, Jessyka is a guest in these practices, right? How are you making these statements as a guest in these practices that you are not trained in, that you don't have really license to be facilitating these ceremonies, and then you make these statements like you're the final authority on these practices? Now, mind you, all this time Jessyka's doing this, she doesn't have the backing of elders. She doesn't have the training of elders. I forgot to mention she'd been kicked out of her Mami Wata house at some point through all of this. You know, she'd been excommunicated from her Mami Wata lineage at some point during all of this. So it's just her and her delusions and her Haitian husband and her making all these crazy statements, you know? Um, and so people started really speaking out. And then all of a sudden, she's making these posts about being attacked and how spirit came to her and told her that someone was trying to, take her down. But then she's so powerful that their house burned down. And it was just like, and again, those who've been following Jessyka or like remember those posts, like it was crazy. It was delusional. It was red flags. It was disrespectful. It was a lot of things that she was saying, because she would attack and bully anyone that didn't go along with her delusions, right? She would play victim. She would create these stories. She would lie. She would host these fetes that I don't even understand how you're hosting. How are you calling luau down when you don't even know, you haven't been trained to? You've been a mambo, you've been initiated for a hot minute. You know what I'm saying? You didn't even finish what you needed to do with your initiatory mother, and all of a sudden now you want to be this big thing. And and again, all of this behind the mask of her glamour, because again, there were a few people that were clocking in and speaking out about it, but there was more people supporting and enabling her than actually really critically thinking about what was going on with her, right? And again, she would be making these very anti-black statements about hoodoo, about voodoo, and it and I'm watching all of this and I'm like, nobody else is noticing that this girl's a problem, but of course, again, it's the glamour. It's the glamour magic. So ultimately what I saw with Jessyka, and Haus of Hoodoo was that she was just a very lost and delusional narcissist, co-opting black spirituality, exploiting black spirituality, and selling it back to us, while all the while being disrespectful and anti-black. And ultimately, that's my own issue with Haus of Hoodoo and with Jessyka Winston, is the fact that she would be so anti-black and so disrespectful, and yet she was selling us our own spirituality while at the same time being so disrespectful to us in the community, right? And then I would see other black women flocking to her store, flocking to her website, giving her money, giving her resources. And it was actually really kind of sad to witness that. For me with Jessyka, it's deeper than her being a scammer. I you know I would say she's more dishonest than anything. um and then the sad thing is that she actually believed a lot of the delusions that she was putting out there. But just the harm that she caused behind the scenes, the way that she attacked spiritualists, the way that she exploited the African spirituality, and then the money she made off of it. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that she had such a large following of black women was also alarming, because Jessyka was just very mean, vicious, problematic, and abusive towards her following, while at the same time asking for y'all's money. You know what I'm saying? And doing all these things that she had no power, no license to do. And you can only do that for so long before that shit falls apart. And a lot of the stuff that's going on with her currently, because she has to close down. Her ex-husband now is basically stole the business from her, stole money from her. There are stories about how there's allegations about how people paid for services from him and didn't get them. So there's a lot of things going on with him. And I'm not going to speak too much about him, because I feel like he's just a piece of this puzzle. He's a player in all of this, and someone that kind of is doing whatever his role in this. It needed to happen for things to come to light. I'll say that, right? But I will say, everything that she's going through was a result of her own actions. And this applies to everybody across the board whose glamour is fading. This applies to entertainers that have been abusing and trafficking and lying and stealing and murdering and doing all these things behind the scenes or to maintain their notoriety. There's this applies to billionaires that are leeching off of the working class in order to maintain their resources. This applies to countries that are causing instability in other countries in order to rape and pillage and take resources. This is across the board. And so I say again that I'm using Jessyka as an example of a smaller issue that's happening within the bigger context, because at this point, spirit, there's only so much that you can take and lie and steal before spirit is like, okay, you can't take anything without giving back. You can't steal, you can't exploit, you can't, everything within the universe is a give or take. And so there's only so much that you can ride that. There's only so much you can harm people. There's only so much you can attack people. There's only so much you can steal from people. So much you can exploit. There's so much that you can unalive and commit genocide before there's you have to atone for that, right? So what's going on with her, the fact that she has to close her business, the fact that her personal business is out there, the fact that she's going through a divorce because I there's a family involved, there's a lot. As a business owner, I cannot imagine having to close my business because somebody came in and destroyed it. It is a lot to manage any type of business, especially a spiritual business. Your ideas, your concepts, what you put your blood, sweat, and tears into. So I can imagine how heartbreaking it is. It's sad. However, again, this is a result of her actions. And at the end of the day, we have to normalize allowing people to reap the consequences of what they've sown. We have to get into the mode of not enabling people. We have to see things for how they are. We can't make excuses for people anymore. We can't continue to ignore when people are problematic. We can't continue to dismiss people who are blowing the whistle, right? So hold on. Let me I need a drink. Let me take a couple sips on this one. So I want to conclude this video by saying that it's really important for us moving forward to discern the difference between a spiritual influencer, a grifter that is just really great at marketing, and a practitioner that happens to just be on social media, right? Because there is a difference. Jessyka isn't the only one that we're going to see being exposed. This is something that we're going to continue to see, right? And to those who are professional spiritualists, my colleagues, my peers, if you ain't right, you need to get right. And really at this point it's probably too late if you ain't been right. And we just really, this is going to continue. This is not the only spiritualist that we're going to see. I've noticed others. Jessyka's situation is the one that's the most in the spotlight, but there's other spiritualists that I've seen that are going through the same thing. And if you start to notice big name spiritualists all of a sudden denouncing their practice and going back to Christianity, that's a sign, because it's no different than a lot of these entertainers, these famous people that are all of a sudden getting baptized and, doing charity work. And it's the same tactic, right? So if you notice these spiritualists are all of a sudden are denouncing the occult and they're going back to Christianity, that's a telltale sign. Or if you notice big name spiritualists that are all of a sudden just closing their stores and they're saying, hey, I'm moving on, I'm doing something different, because I've seen a couple situations of that happening. That's also a telltale sign, because the reality is that what's going on in the world, people actually really need the help of spiritualists, for real, people need, our services, our products, our gifts are really needed right now. And if you are deciding to shut down and not be of service to your community as a spiritualist, after being in the community for years and making hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars, I'm looking at you sideways. I'm looking at you real sideways, because, what are you doing? Is it, you got what you needed from the community and now you're dipping out, or you about to be found out and you're taking your money bag and you dip? Like, it's just, I'm side-eyeing some folks right now. Okay. And that goes into just me talking about my place in all of this. Again, I only mind the business that pays me. I'm a very busy person. I have a business. I have a spiritual house. I have my own practice, my own journey that I'm on. I'm a mother, and so I don't put my nose in things that don't concern me. But however, it does become an issue when I start having people coming to me to undo the damage that these other spiritualists have done. And this has been going on for a few years now. I'm having to cleanse people off. I'm having to reverse things. I'm having to realign stuff with ancestors, fix spiritual issues with spiritual courts. People who've gone to other spiritualists and have been out thousands and thousands of dollars and they're still jobless, still homeless, never even got the service that they paid for. And so I take issue with that as someone who, and I'm not the only one, there's other spiritualists out there that have that same experience where they're having to clean up the mess of someone else. And part of it is the ill intention of the spiritualist that, scammed the client. The other part of it is the client not having the discernment. So this, again, is my cautionary tale, and this is my just encouragement to everybody who's watching this video. See things for how they are and move accordingly, so you're not getting caught up in all of this craziness and not being affected by it in a negative way. So that is it. Yeah, that's all I got. That's all I'm going to say on the matter. I definitely appreciate for those of you who stuck through the whole video, because I really was struggling with how to relay this message. So I hope wherever you are and whatever time of day, night you're watching this, I hope that you're safe and you're blessed. And I'll catch y'all next time.